The European Union today is going through serious crises. Crises call for change. Change implies a rethinking of what exists, a rethinking of policies and institutions. That is what the project Rethink Europe is about. One element of our work is an effort to rethink cohesion. We need to know how EU-minded or EU-aware Europeans actually are. The willingness to cooperate is being shaped by two aspects linked as tightly as the two sides of a coin: individual cohesion and structural cohesion. The first aspect, individual cohesion, is easy to understand. It deals with us as people, as citizens of the European Union. We have evaluated extensive data on citizens' personal EU experiences, their engagement with EU issues during elections, their attitudes towards the EU at large, and the degree to which they approve of further integration. The second aspect, structural cohesion, is as important, but less visible in our daily lives. Here, we've studied EU states' affluence and social justice, their mutual economic ties, their role in EU funding flows, their geographical proximity, and the degree to which they participate in structures of closer union. Individual and structural cohesion, these are the axes in our graph. Let's now go right to the results. Here is the landscape of EU cohesion in 2007. The cohesion level is about halfway between the two extremes. Some member states show fairly strong cohesion levels, most others do not. Let's focus on specific groups of countries. First, the so-called Big Six. They do not show a strong overall level of cohesion. Second, the 11 East Central European countries. They show only modest levels in 2007. Third, take a look at the 7 countries we call the affluent small nations. In our view, these countries have a considerable potential to shape EU cohesion in the future, which is often overlooked. Now, what has changed since 2007? What effects did the financial crisis have? Here we see transitions in cohesion between 2007 and 2014, measured on the basis of the same indicators, the same scales. What is happening here? EU cohesion is not melting in the heat of the crisis. Rather, the cluster of countries around the middle disintegrates and spreads more broadly across the entire field. In terms of cohesion, European countries have moved apart. Rather than a general decline, we see growing differences. Our data thus reveal diverse reactions to the shock and aftermath of the financial crisis. Let's take a closer look at exemplary countries. The results for the United Kingdom show low overall cohesion. Only resilience, security, and engagement stand out. Compare this to Luxembourg, which shows high scores for both individual and structural cohesion. These two countries occupy opposite positions on our cluster graph. The third exemplary position is occupied by Ireland, low on the structural level, but high on the individual level. Now, which country do you think holds a position opposite to that of Ireland? The answer is Hungary, a nation that is today structurally deeply embedded in the European Union, but shows weaker individual level connections. Viktor Orban's policies may be instrumentalizing the Hungarian population's weak EU orientation, but in fact, he is resisting a basic EU reality. Here we see interdependence as an inconvenient truth. The funding indicator is a key factor in East Central Europe's rising cohesion levels. With this indicator, we measure the volume of EU funding going to each of the 28 member states, as well as each state's net budgetary position. That is, whether a country contributes more or less to the EU budget than it receives. In the results displayed here, states are colored according to quartiles, giving us 4 groups of 7 countries. In 2007, East Central European countries showed a mixed record. In 2014, using the same score ranges, 10 of these 11 countries have gained massively. EU structural funds have addressed ingrained development gaps in the East, thus fostering EU cohesion. East Central European countries have also gained ground in the security indicator. In 2007, these countries lagged significantly behind others in the areas of multinational defense and security cooperation. By 2014, they had nearly reached parity with the older EU states. A common narrative for the years 2007 to 2014 attributes responsibility for almost all changes to the financial crisis and the many EU crises in its aftermath. Our data tell a different story. Without making front-page headlines, East Central European countries have used long-term development tools to great success. Next in our analysis, we examine the crisis effects on EU-mindedness. Do citizens want more or less Europe? We've used our resilience indicator as an entry point into this question. This indicator measures socioeconomic resilience, assessing both affluence and social justice. The data show a clear trend. Most countries show losses in both affluence and equality between 2007 and 2014. For now, let's focus on 5 southern European states, along with Ireland. 4 of these countries needed financial assistance to make it through the crisis. First, we compared the results for resilience with those for attitudes. In all 6 countries hit hardest by the crisis, Eurobarometer shows growing negative views regarding the EU at large. Yet, surprisingly, we also see a counterintuitive rise in approval levels. When specifically asked about deeper integration, citizens in all these countries generally offered more positive views than in 2007. This is a stunning result. Evidently, people are more critical of the European Union in times of crisis, but they nevertheless support more Europe. We believe that these countervailing results have to do with the positive impact of people-to-people contacts. We thus examined European horizontal networks as part of our experience indicator. Eurobarometer data show how widespread contact between EU citizens actually is. Participants were asked whether they had come into contact with citizens from other EU countries at any time in the last 12 months. Percentages differed greatly between countries. However, in absolute terms, the share of citizens answering yes with over 250 million people is an impressive figure. On the other hand, the number of citizens answering no is equally large. Moreover, we still see EU countries in 2014 in which social relations remain mostly local or national. We have picked 3 of these countries to illustrate the great significance of individual cohesion. Look at these countries' low scores within the indicators of experience with its 4 factors and engagement with its 3 election-related factors. Now compare this to 3 other EU member states that score well in these indicators. Taken together, these 2 indicators reflect the citizens' willingness to cooperate in the context of the European Union. Individual cohesion is shaped by people, not by politicians. What Europe needs from its citizens today are richer experiences with one another and a greater level of engagement. If the public mood shifts to one of populism and nationalism, the already difficult situation will only get worse. As we compare these 6 countries, we discover the same pattern evident in the overall results. With respect to EU cohesion, Europe's states are drifting in opposing directions or into different camps. The movement of countries between 2007 and 2014 illustrates this complex story in a single image. There's a lot going on, but there is no single trend. This graph shows the same movements as before, but this time using a relative visualization. When focusing only on the degree of change, the winners and losers in terms of structural and individual cohesion become quite clear. The 28 countries are divided into 4 groups, occupying the graph's respective corners. In a nutshell, the majority of countries have improved with regard to individual cohesion. Only 6 countries have declined in this dimension. A considerable gap opens between the 2 groups at the structural level. The top right group includes 9 East Central European countries that show remarkable cohesion gains. However, Greece and Hungary are drifting away from the others despite their structural improvements. The other half of the country sample shows structural level losses. All 6 large EU countries, with the exception of Poland, fall into this category. 3 of the 6 have declined in both cohesion measures. Anyone seeking to rethink European integration should examine these data and try to understand not only the degree of cohesion, but also its composition. A study of cohesion is a study of the glue that binds European countries and societies together. Finding ways to strengthen these bonds is vital for European policymaking. No single approach will serve to strengthen cohesion across the board. Any catch-all cohesion strategy is bound to fail, as the patterns of cohesion seen in various EU countries vary too widely. It is reassuring to find that cohesion, as measured by the Cohesion Monitor, seems less volatile than expected. However, this also means that cohesion-building processes will be complicated and that they will take time. We invite you to work with our Cohesion Monitor. Study the material. Take away the lessons most relevant to you. Most of all, draw your own conclusions and share them with us if you will. Thank you for watching.